Martin Luther King was very important in improving lives of blacks between 1955 to 1965 through his contributions to the civil rights movement. In the early 1950s, much of the USA was segregated under the Jim Crow laws, and blacks found it extremely difficult to improve their own situation. Schools, public services and the army were segregated under the separate but equal doctrine, and services for blacks were always worse than those for whites. Martin Luther King rose to prominence when he assisted in the Montgomery bus boycott alongside Rosa Parks, refusing to ride the buses for 381 days, and finally led to the full desegregation of buses in Montgomery, Alabama. Throughout the early 1960s, Martin Luther King, with the support of the NAACP and other civil rights leaders, continued to campaign peacefully for equal rights. Major events included the Birmingham March and the March on Washington. Martin Luther King was arrested at the Birmingham March in 1963 and put in jail. There, he wrote the letter from Birmingham jail, creating even more support for the civil rights movement from both blacks and whites. Later the same year, the March on Washington was held, where King delivered his famous "I Have a Dream" speech. All of these actions eventually led to the signing of the Civil Rights Act in 1964, declaring both blacks and whites equal under the law. In 1965, the Voting Rights Act was passed to eliminate barriers stopping black Americans from voting. Black lives were also improved by the contributions of Malcolm X, Thurgood Marshall and Rosa Parks, although their contributions were not as important as King's. Malcolm X helped in civil rights by giving speeches, raising the esteem of blacks, and working with politicians for support. However, his violent approach was not always welcomed. Rosa Parks kicked off the civil rights movement with the bus boycott, and with the help of King turned the boycott into a national movement. Thurgood Marshall, a talented lawyer, fought for rights in the Brown v. Topeka case, leading to the desegregation of schools in 1954. Martin Luther King was very important to improving black lives between 1955 and 1965. His tireless efforts in the bus boycott, peaceful campaigning, and the marches in Birmingham and Washington all led to the signing of the Civil Rights Act and Voting Rights Act, declaring blacks and whites equal under the law.